When it comes to video games, I can't deny that graphics have a big part to play. Games like Red Dead 2, Last of Us Part 2, and Cyberpunk 2077 have pushed the boundaries of what we used to think of as good graphics and have created a new baseline for AAA games. And this alone isn't really a bad thing. I mean, having a game with good polished graphics makes for a more immersive experience and just a beautiful overall game to look at as you play, and it just makes a game overall a little bit more enjoyable. However, this begs the question, do all AAA games need to have this level of good graphics? My short and sweet answer for this is going to have to be no, they don't. And I know this answer might make some people upset, but just listen to me for a little bit. Elden Ring is a well-known game, and it's become huge ever since it released back in 2022. It's a great game. I mean, it has a huge open world, it's a Souls-like, and people just fell in love with it really fast. However, Elden Ring doesn't necessarily have top-tier graphics. Not to say the graphics are bad, the graphics are fine, but they're not amazing when compared to other games like Red Dead Redemption 2 and Last of Us Part 2. Elden Ring doesn't meet those standards, but it's still a very well-loved game. It's not loved because of its graphics, it's loved because of its gameplay and its boss fights and its immersive story and other aspects that are equally just as important when making a game. You see, the game is stylized beautifully, but this doesn't necessarily mean that the graphics themselves on a surface level are going to be absolutely incredible. I think for a game like Elden Ring, the simplicity of the graphics helps you to kind of like focus more on the other aspects of the game, where as in like Red Dead Redemption, obviously there's immersive gameplay and all that, but the big focus as you're exploring the world is going to be those graphics as you're wandering around and looking at these amazing sights that you can see as you play. That brings me to the main topic of today's video. Back in March this year, the game Rise of the Ronin released, and it didn't live up to a lot of people's expectations. The gameplay was great, really fun honestly, and the story was decent, and there was a lot of side content around the world to explore. However, Rise of the Ronin fell short of people's expectations in one specific aspect: the graphics. You see, throughout the game's marketing phase, people were watching those trailers and they were expecting these top tier graphics to kind of live up to that PlayStation logo that was slapped onto the game. And understandably, that's fair. PlayStation is known for having exclusives with really well done graphics. I mean, games like Last of Us, as I mentioned before, but also other games like God of War and Ghost of Tsushima, they all had amazing graphics and lived up to that standard that was set by PlayStation for their exclusives. The issue with Rise of the Ronin is that when it released and when more gameplay was shown, people started to notice that the graphics weren't exactly as they thought they would be. The cinematic trailers leading up to the gameplay were beautiful and people had high expectations, but when the gameplay actually released, it just fell short. This led to immediate feedback of people just clowning on the game for having bad graphics and comparing it to PS3 games and then saying it looked worse than Ghost of Tsushima, which they were hoping it would compare to. And honestly, I feel like this was unfair for the game. I have in fact played through this entire game and I really do enjoy it. I mean, I do think the game had a lot of performance issues, but the graphics themselves weren't absolutely horrendous or anything like that. It was honestly a pretty decent looking game and nothing like people were saying. They're just solid graphics. It's a solid looking game. And I personally think that the devs were looking for a more gameplay focused approach, just like Elden Ring, and they weren't really trying to make the most pretty game of the year. That's like the main thing I love about the game is the gameplay. Just to give a quick overview, there's a bunch of options when it comes to the gameplay. There's a two-handed sword, a katana, an odachi, and a greatsword option, a spear option. There's even a couple more unique ones that I haven't even brought up yet. While you're fighting, you have the option to change between weapons. You have two main weapons that you can have in your inventory and then like a sub-weapon, which is like a gun or a bow or something like that. And you can switch between these weapons at any time, making it very fluent, and it's just very enjoyable. You could be fighting someone with one weapon and then switch over to another to do some punishing attacks and stuff like that and do combos with different weapons. It's very cool. The attack animations were smooth and stylish, and it just feels great overall. There's a lot of traversal options, such as like running around or getting on a horse or even a glider that they added, which is very fun to use because you can glide to like one point to another, and that part was pretty cool. I mean, not super unique, but it was fun. The game does suffer a little bit from bloated side missions and stuff like that, but it's nothing too bad if you've played like Assassin's Creed games and Ubisoft games in general. If you like the Ubisoft structure, you'll probably enjoy playing Rise of the Ronin. It's one of those games you can kind of just go in brain dead and just do stuff and get cool rewards out of it and new weapons and new armor and get skill points to level up your character and become more powerful and stuff like that. Most of the stuff you'll find to do around the map is like go to a location and kill some enemies and then liberate that area, or find chests around the map that get you new gear, find these markers on the map that let you like teleport to them, kind of like a campfire in a Souls game. And then other stuff like petting these dogs that you find that get you some rewards. And then also there's a lot of cats that you can find, like a shit ton of cats. That's kind of stupid. There's like cats everywhere. And these cats, they get you stuff, but there's so many cats. There's like a lot of cats. I just can't believe there's so many fucking cats. Like, get these cats out of my fuck. There's so many cats. Why are there so many cats in this game? Anyways, there's also a bunch of side missions you can do that are basically the same thing, copy and pasted, with you going somewhere and killing people. But honestly, the gameplay is just so enjoyable, where if you're able to keep using a different approach every time, whether that be stealth head-on or just using different weapon variety, it's enough to keep you like engaged, and you should be able to get through these missions without getting very bored to death and stuff like that. But yeah, like, I think the side content might be the biggest issue I have with the game, and even then it's not really that abysmal or anything like that. It's just fine. It's Ubisoft exploration. It's Ubisoft side content. It's just is what it is. You just do it and you're done. You get cool shit out of it. The main story of the game is fine. It gets pretty good as you go on. It's an interesting narrative if you like shows like Shogun. It's loosely tied to history, but it's not super historical. It's like obviously a historical fiction. But the story is basically about your character slowly becoming a Ronin as you hunt down some dude that kills your partner at the beginning of the game. And you have the choice throughout to become a shogunate, anti-shogunate, or a neutral affiliation. There's a lot of dark moments throughout the story, and overall it's good. It's nothing groundbreaking, but it's good. If you really want an amazing, like, historical Japan story, play Ghost of Tsushima if you haven't. That is definitely the most, historically accurate choice when it comes to games out right now. But Rise of the Ronin still has this historical aspect as you play. Like, you'll see, like, the British Empire and stuff like that, and it's got the Western Japanese city vibes going for it. But yeah, so Rise of the Ronin, it's not a bad game. If you haven't played it yet because you've seen bad reviews about the graphics being bad, it's not really something to pay attention to. The graphics aren't bad. It's actually pretty decent overall, and the graphics are fine, and you won't even really think about it as you play. So I think that the idea that graphics have to be everything in a game is kind of stupid. I know a lot of people probably don't think this, but there are a good amount of people that do. And the graphics are not what make a game good or bad. I think graphics are only important when a game is centered around the graphics. Like slower games where you're exploring, or, stuff like Last of Us Part 2, it's a linear game, so there's times where it slows down and you can enjoy the view. Games like Red Dead where it's very slow at times and you're running around from one point on the map to another. That makes sense to have amazing graphics. But a game that's revolved around combat and fast-paced action that doesn't slow down a lot doesn't really need to have good graphics. It just needs to have okay enough graphics that it can at least compare to modern day games. But yeah, at the end of the day, if you've been wanting to play Rise of the Ronin, but you're not sure if you'll enjoy it because you've heard bad things and you think that the graphics are abysmal, just go ahead and try it. If you don't like the graphics and you're like, this is ugly, then whatever. But I'm telling you that there is a game there, and there's a lot more to it than the graphics, and I think it deserves a better chance than what it got, because what it got was kind of unfair, to be honest with you. Rise of the Ronin has been on the rise on sales recently, as a lot of people have started to ignore the negative reviews, and they have started to actually enjoy the game, and a lot of people are talking about how good it is now after months of it being out. So I just wanted to come on here and share my thoughts on it, and hopefully get someone else new to start playing the game if it's been something you've been eyeing, or maybe something you haven't even thought about playing, but now you might be interested after watching this. So yeah, with that, I want to thank you guys for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Adios.